Outside the Box reviews. We are looking at the 2011 Alien and Predator 2-pack. This was the beginning of NECA giving us our annual December time 2-packs involving Aliens and Predator. This was a Toys R Us exclusive 2-pack that contained the Alien from the movie Alien and the Predator from the movie Predator. So starting off, the origins of both of these classic sci-fi monsters. When this pack came out, they hadn't released anything beyond the Predators line, the 2010 movie line. And I was so excited to see them going back to the original source material of the movies, doing these guys, and I was super psyched to get these guys in hand and check them out. Now, as any good exclusive 2-pack should, this thing came with other reasons to pick it up. The main ones being the skulls. We got 2 trophy skulls, the first being a Predator skull. I was really excited to get this. Kind of an odd choice. It kind of felt more like it went with the Predators line, because we saw more of these kind of skulls in the Predators line. But if you're going to do Alien vs. Predator and not really talk about the movies with that name, it's kind of neat to have the skull, a victim or whatever. Or you could even add it to a Predator trophy wall if you really felt inclined. I don't know if the EU on Predators, if they say anything about Predator versus Predator combat outside of what we saw in Predators, but, you know, I think it's cool. Mine's a little deformed, the lower jaw's not quite right, so it doesn't all match up completely. But as a skull, I think it works. It received battle damage, and maybe that's how the guy died. Maybe he was punched in the face over here or something, impact over on this side that would have caused that damage. It gives it kind of character, and I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, so happy enough to have it. It's good detail on it, good bone texture. They dirtied it up a lot. You can see in the back here, it's got all the places for the dreads where they would have come out of the skull. Really well detailed, and neat that it is articulated as well. Second skull we got is the Xenomorph Alien skull. This one fares a little better. The jaw's lined up pretty well. It's a cool looking skull. It's got the ridge back here, and the connectors, and the spinal column I assume would come out of that. Once again, articulated jaw. It's a pretty cool trophy. It matches the one you see in Predator 2 up on the wall. So that's a nice touch, especially seeing where they went with the Predator 2 line and just giving us all those lost hunters. You could even put this in a diorama with them. Nice paint job, as with the Predator skull. I definitely like it. And we'll start off the figure reviews with the H.R. Giger Alien. In the original movie, it's a cool design, no matter how you slice it. Unfortunately, it's not the coolest figure. This version, this re-release of it, since this is very much a re-release, is somewhat improved. I don't know if it's by accident or by actual improvement on NECA's part. See, I'd owned this figure before. I was kind of late to the game on seeing the Alien movies. I was actually pretty late to the game. It took me a while to get around to them. When I was in kindergarten, my friend had showed me the beginning of Aliens, and it scared the living crap out of me. The dream sequence with the chest burster just scared the crap out of me. And I avoided them until my girlfriend made me sit down and watch the box set of all the movies. And then I realized, you know, at that point I actually enjoyed them. I was no longer terrified of. And I love the design in the original Alien, and the differences it went throughout the movies I think is really intriguing. After I saw the movies, I picked up this figure, or basically this figure, single-carded, and he was so fragile. I'd ordered him off the internet, and I got him. I'd read reviews on it saying the joints are stiff, makes you really, really careful with the joints. I was super careful, just being very gentle, heating them up where I had to, moving them around, and they still all snapped apart. Not all, but several of them did break. I glued some of them back in place, getting them into the best possible pose I could before locking him into place. Put him up on the shelf. He kept falling over and breaking more limbs. Truly a sad day for this collector. Fortunately, this version, he doesn't have those problems. The joints are a lot more movable. I mean, I'm still going to be careful with him, but he's not nearly as fragile as the first one I had. And that makes me feel so much better because, I mean, this guy's fallen off the shelf and hasn't gotten a scratch on him so far, fortunately. The sculpting on this figure is top-notch. There's so many little details. All the markings, the exoskeleton, all the biomechanical stuff. It's all over this figure. It's pretty much a uniform black. There's some kind of grayish highlights, and the way the light hits it, it really works well off of it, giving an authenticity to the movie that I think a lot of companies kind of would have messed up, but this one really seems to have it for me. He's got his creepy deformed feet, a little thing coming off the back. In this version had the very thin tail, which they make really well. It has a bendy wire in it, so you get articulation out of it. Nice little spike at the end. He has his big tubes coming off the back. This big piece in the middle here. His wires that come up to his jaw. Shoulder panels. Spikes on the elbow. I love the hands on this one. The way they're designed with the almost symmetrical hands. It's really a creepy look and very alien looking. But my absolute favorite part of this figure is the head sculpt. Just because NECA included a translucent piece of plastic on the top where you could actually see the alien skull through the dome, which is in the movie. It's really, really hard to see unless you've seen the movie like a billion times, but the alien does have a clear dome. And this one I think is a little too clear. The original one I got had a much darker dome, so there's definitely a repaint on it. And this one I do kind of like just so you could see so much detail, but I don't think it's supposed to be quite so transparent. It needs to be more of a dusty color almost to just block that out. Now the original figure I bought, I decided to pick apart for trophy parts for my Predator collection. So this is the head off of that one. I think I'll use this one for my head example just so I don't risk messing this guy up at all. But you can see the skull underneath the dome. I pried the dome off, and it's really well sculpted underneath. Really cool looking. Now you will notice it doesn't match the trophy skull, but that is movie accurate. Seeing this is from Predator 2 and this is from Alien, so not a lot of continuity between the two, but they are both movie accurate to their own movie. In the jaw you have the very sharp looking teeth. You can pull that jaw open. There's more translucent plastic on the side here used to make the membrane from where he'd open his mouth, which I thought was a really cool touch. Didn't know how they'd go about replicating that look for this figure, and they did a good job of it. And then, of course, he has the trademark inner tongue. The inner tongue actually works better on the newer figure, so I'll demonstrate here. You can pull it out, and it's pretty well detailed as well. It's got the teeth. It's kind of just a fleshy color, but it looks good coming out of the mouth on this guy. You close it a little and it tilts down a bit. I wish it would extend a little bit further. It's not quite as long as I think it should be, but it still looks really cool, and it's very neat to display him like this. And it's such an alien trademark. For articulation, he has a ball-jointed head. He has pin socket shoulders, though once again very stiff. I don't want to force it at all for this video. Rotate the upper arm. Hinge at the elbow. Rotate at the wrist. He has a ball joint in the mid-torso. Swivel at the hips on the diagonal. Rotate at the upper leg. Bend at the knee. And bend at the ankle. And you guys know by now, if it bleeds, I can review it. We got the Predator from the original movie here. The second figure in the 2-pack. And, well, you guys are probably sick of seeing this review. I've done a review on this same basic figure how many times now? Let's see. There was the classic Predator from the Predators line. There was the Masked City Hunter. There was the Gort Predator. And the Elder Predator basically had the same body. So, you've seen this review several times already if you've stayed tuned to the channel. But still, at this point he was the third Predator on this body released, and the first incarnation we got in plastic from NECA of the original movie Predator. Now granted, the only difference between this guy and the one from the Predators movie are the addition of these necklaces and trophies and such around him, which are well executed and been reused ridiculous amounts of times since. All the different skulls on the chain here, spinal column, and the one around his neck. We also did get a fresh head sculpt for this guy. I have to say it's not my favorite head sculpt they've given us. It's kind of a closed mouth, sneering look. I really do prefer the Predator with the open mouth. This isn't the coolest look, but of course, You can always pop the head off and change it out with another Predator head, so you can kind of get anything you want out of it if you have the other heads to swap. The body's pretty much what you get with all the other ones. It's got some good netting patterns going over. The overall paint job is pretty nice. A little loincloth, the rubber armor on the legs, big shin guards, cool looking feet and sandals. Same hands we've gotten before, the one closed fist and the one open hand. This guy's little computer here on the side with a cable. I still love these cables. Don't get really tangled up when you move them. It's great to not have to worry about breaking these. He's got a standard wrist gauntlet. You can see it's retracted here. And you pull it out to its full extent. Turn around, we've got all of his rubber dreadlocks. There's a little flap of his costume. And of course his removable gun up here. You could take it and pluck it right off there on the back. The gun's pretty nicely detailed. They could have done a little better with the paint wash on it, I think. It's pretty just flat coloration. Of course, you have the plasma caster up here with its hinge in the bottom and the ball joint up top to get a full range of motion out of it, which is pretty darn cool. Now, thanks to this guy, I had to buy this set twice. The first time I got him, I tried to move his arm, and it was totally locked in place. I scraped away at the paint in there, I heated it up, I freezed it, I did all the tricks I could possibly think of. His arm was not moving. I honestly think, for some weird reason, it just formed as one piece. The plastic was just continuous all the way throughout, and it was impossible to bend it. Fortunately, when I returned it and got a new set, this guy has full articulation. So he has his ball-jointed head, swivel at the waist, pin and socket shoulders giving you a great range of motion, bend and swivel at the elbows, ball-jointed wrist, V-cut at the crotch, rotate the upper leg, bend the knee and rotate, and a ball-jointed foot. Overall, I think this is a pretty cool set. As I mentioned before, it was a Toys R Us exclusive. It was the only way to get this specific Predator, and the Alien was just a repack of a figure that you could buy single-carded, though I don't think NECA had re-released him in a little while when this had come out. The Alien, I really, really like. I love the design from the first movie. I love this take on that design. It's pretty well articulated, even if it is a bit fragile, but if you're willing to be patient with it and take the time with it, you can kind of get him into a lot of good poses if you're not too aggressive. The paint on it's good. The feature of the tongue is really cool. The translucencies and stuff are neat. So I could definitely recommend him on his individual basis. And as for the Predator, at this point I'm looking at it a little jaded as we've seen this body a billion times. But at the point when this came out, he was the first Predator from the first movie NECA had released in this line. He was also only the third time they'd used this body, and I honestly didn't pick up the masked classic Predator from the Predators line, so it was only the second version of this guy that I had. In reality, though, I kind of wish they'd used this set to introduce the masked classic Predator, because that is the classic look of the classic Predator. And that really kind of hurts this guy, because I just don't love the face on him, and that's my biggest gripe. The body is good. I've reviewed the body like 800 times before, and I know I kind of went through it quick this time, but I mean, it's a good body, it's fine, it does what it needs to do. It's just hard for me to get excited about it at this point, which is on my fault as a reviewer, because I really should be able to get excited about it each and every time, because the reviews are all separate entities. So it is a good figure itself. I'm just not crazy about the face. So having one figure that I'm in love with and one figure that I'm okay with, the thing that pushes it into the category where I'm going to say I'm going to recommend this pack are the accessories. The two skulls that come with this pack are awesome, and they got me really wanting to do a Predator diorama, which I still haven't gotten around to even attempting. I'm still not even sure if I'm ever going to do it. I have so many Predators now, I think it would just be a jumbled mess if I tried to put them all in it. But still, these are freaking cool, and they're a great package on NECA's part. And I believe this pack cost $30, $35 when it came out, so you were really getting a discount on the figures. These two guys would probably run for about $15 a piece anyway. You get the extra accessories. It was a pretty good deal. I don't know how hard this pack would be to come across now. And that's the other thing that kind of makes me stop on the recommendation. I'm still going to stick by my recommendation, but If you don't need this version of the Predator, and you're not as keen on the skulls, see, the skulls are the selling point for me. That's why I wanted this pack more than I normally would anyway. The alien is cool on its own, but you can buy him on his own. And you have plenty of other ways to get this Predator or one very similar to it single-carded. So the skulls really are the true exclusive. But they're a strong one. They're a nice touch to it, and it makes everything just that much better. But anyway, this has been another Outside the Box review, and stay tuned for much more to come.